All right, everybody, it's time for another story time. I got sick I've been sick for like 2 weeks, and it took another week for my voice to really come back, so I wasn't able to record this. So, for those who actually like my short stories, sorry it took so long for this one, but this is one I worked on really hard, and it's the first in a series of stories. It's the first episode. I've got 5 planned out. So, hope you enjoy. The Dark Man, Episode 1, An Old Friend. Are we born to darkness or born to light? The age-old question. Humans are born with a loathing for the dark. Our eyes cannot stare into the abyss. But darkness isn't evil. To creatures of the night, it is the light that brings horrors, just as people who do dark deeds fear most the exposure of the light of day. His name is Frank Lumas. To evil, he is known as the Dark Man. He walks in creeping shadows to drag evil into the light, to punish the wicked, to tear the wretched evil from the soul and to drag it to where it belongs, to the gray realm, where old gods still live, where aborted terrors lurk in shadows so dark even the most sensitive eyes of the night creatures can't see. Through their own darkness, the wicked's crimes always come to light. It was September 2nd, 1921. Using their private yacht, the Umbra, Frank Lumas and his companion Rose from the Order of Stone traveled up the Bosphorus from the Mediterranean and into the Black Sea. They then traveled north along the coast into still wild Roma country, a land still cloaked in myths and stories. They arrived at a quiet dock in a fishing town near the city of Constantina. As the sun set, a fog rolled in from the sea. The air was sour from the smell of fishing vessels bobbing up and down alongside the Umbra. The 2 travelers walked down the gangplank. The first to disembark was Frank. He was a middle-aged man with dark hair around the edges of his balding head. His brown eyes darted around the dock, constantly alert for telepathic traces of danger. He stood with a single suitcase, favoring his left leg. Frank was unremarkable in his appearance. In a dark brown suit, he was neither ugly nor overpoweringly handsome. His build was neither heavy nor gaunt. If one didn't know any better, one would think that he was a bland, boring character. However, in his eyes lay a quiet intensity. This was the Dark Man. There had always been a Dark Man, and there will always be a Dark Man for as long as men have done foul deeds. Behind him, easily carrying her massive luggage, stepped Rose of Stone. She, unlike Frank, was someone who looked anything but average. Standing 6'3", she towered above women and men alike. Her shoulder-length blonde curls bounced as she carried suitcases on both shoulders. Her brown eyes sparkled as she smiled at the foggy evening. She always did love a good fog. It spoke to the romantic heart that she rarely shared. Wearing tan jeans and a safari shirt, she was dressed practically, but practical clothes were incapable of hiding her feminine curves. Broad shoulders, the exact width of her hips, spoke to proportions that would have made an ideal shield maiden were these still Viking times. She was only 21 years old and still had that youthful roundness to her face. She dropped the luggage on the dock, which made an odd sound like tumbling bricks. "Rose, be a dear and hand me my cane," Frank requested as Rose held a thick rope from the Umbra in her hands. "Get it yourself, I'm busy tying down the Umbra," she replied as she knotted the rope around a cleat on the dock. "Oh, never mind, it was laying against the luggage," he said as he strained to move one of Rose's suitcases. "Why are these bags so damn heavy?" he asked. "Mostly full of rocks," she said as she stood up straight again. "Why do we have 5 bags of rocks?" Frank inquired. "We have 3 bags of rocks and 2 bags of clothes," said Rose. "Ah, I see. You know, if you would just let me read your mind from time to time, all of this would be much less confusing for the both of us," Frank teased. "For the 100th time, my mind is my own, even if my life isn't," Rose said. She was in a mood of frustration. They had been traveling together for a little over a year nonstop. And since most of their days were spent at sea, Rose's nerves were beginning to fray. And, like all companions forced to live in confined spaces at sea, she was beginning to tire of her friend Frank. "I do apologize that we couldn't stop in Istanbul. I know Hagia Sophia is on your list. But a friend in need—" "Wait, here comes the coachman," Frank said as the horse-drawn carriage came clip-clopping towards the docks. "Oi, over here," Rose called out to help the driver find the right pier. The coachman dismounted his carriage and began to walk towards our weary travelers. He was more of a boy than a man. Holding his riding whip in one hand, he took off his hat to reveal a bushy head of tawny-colored hair. His blue eyes twinkled as he smiled. "Hello, mister. Hello, miss. I have come to take you to Dr. Hume's house," he said with a heavy Romanian accent. "Why, you're just a kid," Rose said in surprise. "I will be 17 in March, miss," he said, standing as tall as he could. Rose cracked another smile. "Good, then grab these bags and carry them." The coachman nodded and grabbed the closest suitcase. A look of surprise came as he tried to lift it. It was more than he could carry with one hand. "Why are they so heavy?" he asked in astonishment. "You don't expect a lady to carry them, do you?" The coachman, using both hands, managed to start dragging the case towards the coach with a grunt. "Oh, my sorries. I will carry," he said before muttering some curse in Romanian. "Don't you think you're being a bit hard on the boy?" Frank asked. "He looks like he should be lifting more rocks, not less to me." "It'll be good for him," she said, letting the amusement take the edge off her irritation. "It might be good for me, too," Frank said, eyeing the luggage. "You tear your skinny arms off. Now come along, let's go see your doctor friend," Rose said as she lifted another of the cases effortlessly. The carriage wound up a lonely road above the Bohemian town towards a house on the hill. A faint light shone from the windows. The wind whistled through the trees, scattering the autumn leaves off the branches and into the air as the carriage approached the large, well-built house with dim lights in the windows. The coachman spoke from the driving seat. "Go inside. I'll bring your bags upstairs. Do you need one room or two?" Frank and Rose said together in unison, "Two." "Yes, of course. My English. Excuse me," he said in frustration. Frank stepped out of the coach while leaning on his cane and stepped forward to where he could reach the coachman. "Not to worry, young man," he said. "Here, take this for your trouble." Frank reached into his jacket and produced a handful of coins. The coachman's eyes grew wide as Frank dropped them into his eager hands. "Thank you, sir. I will carry the bags," he said with a little more enthusiasm. The boy hopped down from his driving perch and the horse whinnied into the wind. He pulled the first piece of luggage from the carriage and began dragging it towards the front door. Frank leaned closer to Rose and asked in a hushed tone, "Did you notice his face?" Rose whispered back, "You mean the way he looked at me in anger? The way his face seemed forced? The way he seemed preoccupied?" "Yes, there is something twisted inside him. Not yet on the surface. Something slithering beneath. I can't bring it into focus yet. Watch your back." Rose let out a brief chuckle. "Don't worry, I'll squeeze it out of him when the time is right." "Wait until he shows his hand," Frank said, narrowing his eyes as he peered into the surface of the boy's mind. "Kill him?" Rose asked with a touch of distaste. "Not unless you have to. He knows things he shouldn't. He may just be a pawn. We shall see." The boy returned, and grabbing the next suitcase, he said, "I can show you to your rooms." Frank said, "I will go and see Dr. Humes immediately. Rose will see him to the rooms." The boy replied, "Yes, sir." "Hurry up, boy, these bags won't carry themselves," Rose said. "Yes, miss, but you look strong. Can you help?" the boy asked begrudgingly, wrestling with gravity for control of the bag. "A man who complains too much will never find a lady. Now up you go." Rose chided as she smacked the boy across the back like he was the horse and she was the coachman. "Yes, miss," he said, barely hiding his annoyance. Frank chuckled as the boy waddled away with Rose towering behind him. He closed his eyes, and with his occult-like preternatural senses, he took stock of the night. There was darkness nearby. Not the darkness of the night, but human darkness. Through his gifts, the dark man could follow darkness like a compass. It was floating in the air like a scent for the mind. Aside from the background noise of lesser evils, there was a pungent note, distinct yet still vague. He couldn't quite lock in on it yet. He opened his eyes and walked up the driveway and into the house. He began to talk to himself in a murmuring tone to help him focus on the task at hand, while his mind's eye kept alert for danger. "Now, let's see if I can find the good doctor. The gaslights are dim. I can feel my way even in this murk. Secrets hiding from the light. as if lowering the lamps could hide the truth. The air. Something wicked is about to happen. I must be on my guard. He began to ascend the darkly lacquered wooden stairs. The green paisley wallpaper was barely visible in the gaslight. He continued to murmur to himself. I can hear the good doctor's thoughts in the night. His mind is almost feverish. To think that a scholar of the Golden City could find something this terrifying, something in the den of his mind. There is another force at work, something strangely familiar. Here is his door. I'll just knock. And knock he did. A weak, elderly voice called out from inside. Hello, is that you, Bernard? I said to leave me alone until morning. Such an unreliable valet. You know not to come in the house at night. Frank opened the door. Dr. Humes, it's me, Frank. Dr. Humes paused and said, Lumas? But how? I was told there was no reply to my cable. Yet here I am, my old friend. Here, let me turn up the gaslight. Frank, I'm over here in the bed. Frank was astonished by what he saw. What the devil? You look positively dead. Your hands are so shriveled. Your hair is gray. Your skin looks like it's made of old parchment. Your blue eyes. Your blue eyes are white. Yes, but I can still see a little. I've seen almost as much as a man can see and still live. I can see your face if you come closer. Humes reached out his hand towards Frank. Yes, doctor, I'll take your hand. Look at me. Look into my eyes. Yes, that's it. Feel the warmth of my hand. Come from the shadows. They can't hold you anymore. Yes, that's it. Frank coaxed the mind of the doctor, gently leading him back from some foggy depth. It's, oh God, you look the same as all those years ago. So cruel that the old gods only favor those with the great gifts. It should be impossible, but here you are reminding me of it again. Humes exclaimed as he ran his other hand across Frank's face. Hush, old friend. It's merely a trick of the light. Oh, Frank, I tried to hide, but something came for me. Just like it came for your master on the night of the great fire. Humes looked around the room wildly, like he expected to see some danger darting away in the shadows. Just take a deep breath, doctor. Tell me, Frank said soothingly. I'm not strong like you. I can't fight it, Dr. Humes said, his voice full of fear. Frank kept speaking hypnotically. Just focus your mind, dear doctor. Show me your mind. I can remember. Yes. The images become clearer, Frank coaxed while concentrating on his gift. The first day I saw the Golden City, Hume said with a wistful smile. Frank smiled as well. I see it too. In the middle of a snow-capped wilderness, fields of green, stretching into the backdrop of craggy peaks. Humes replied to Frank like their voices were one. In the middle, a vast shining city. Frank sighed gently at the warmth of an old memory. Oh, I wish I could gaze upon it with you, my friend. For every night that accompanies day, I wish we could stay. But I need you to think. Why am I here? Why did you send for me? What filth could scare a man such as you? Humes's brow furrowed, and he tried to pull back down the well of confusion that plagued his mind. I'm no longer young and curious. I've seen too much. Please, just let me sleep. Frank replied while gripping his friend's hand tightly. I'm sorry, good doctor, but you're in danger. Everyone in this town is. I know this much from knowing you. If it had been a problem you alone could solve, you wouldn't be so afraid. Let me in. Humes's eyes popped back open as he again focused on the here and now. The boy, he exclaimed. Frank continued to weave the old man's thoughts gently. Yes. Concentrate. I can almost see his face. The young boy looks about 11. Dark eyes. No, wait. No eyes. Disfigured. He escaped the monster. I tried to help. I'm the chief surgeon. When the boys started going missing, I looked into it. The police wouldn't listen. Fools! Nurses started forgetting the patients' names, and then forgetting that there were patients at all in the rooms. A room full of boys. No one could see them anymore. I had to start tending to them myself. A chief surgeon changing bedpans. It would have been comical if it wasn't so sad. Oh, I don't want to remember. Summon your courage. I need to know, Frank said as Dr. Humes finally locked eyes with him, his ghostly white eyes staring deep into Frank's hypnotic gaze. Humes continued. They started to disappear. One by one. I would stay up all night to watch them, but they would still vanish. I would turn my back to pick up a bedpan and look upon an empty bed. I must have sounded mad, but no one could see into the room. It was like they had no eyes. But somehow, you figured something out, didn't you? You saw a face. Not just any face. It was a junior doctor, Dr. Mishka. He walked right in, put his stethoscope on the chest of a boy. Then he turned and looked at me. Something in his face turned and twisted. Tears were now welling up in the good doctor's eyes. Frank looked deep into the doctor's mind. Something, almost a part of his face, but not. A creature. No, still a man. Ah, you saw his soul. The dark shard of madness that he hides from the world. The part he feeds only when no one is watching. Your eyes saw his true face. And then the world went dark, Humes whispered. The mental connection was broken. Humes let out a long sigh and sank back into his bed like a boat disappearing below the waves. Meanwhile, Rose was pushing the boy to move faster. Deliberately playing the taskmaster, she poked and prodded the coachman's fragile psyche. Yes, put all the bags in my room. Even Frank's. Come on, chop, chop. The boy coachman was getting angry. Yes, miss. Why, the way you're sweating, you'd think it was midday in El Paso, boy. I'm not a boy, he said under his breath. Rose pounced on the crack in his veneer of politeness. Did you just talk back to me, boy? I can always take back that tip Mr. Lumas dropped into your greedy pocket. The boy took the bait. Why do I always end up this way? Why doesn't everyone just carry their own damn bag? Do your own damn work. I don't want to clean beneath the floorboards, too. But I thought it was your job, you silly boy. What are you going on about? Rose fired off the word boy again, like pulling a trigger. My job? Yes, I need to go do my job. Rose put her hands on her hips. Oh, do you? Do you need to go? Yes, away. The boy dropped his burden and began to walk towards the door. Oh, don't just walk out the door just yet. Let's talk a while, she said mockingly while positioning herself between him and the door. I don't have time, he hissed. What's the hurry? Get out of the way, he said, waving an arm like a gesture could budge Rose from the spot. If you want to go, you'll just have to go through me, she said, quietly ready for quick action. What? The boy looked confused at the tall woman in front of him. You're sweating more now, and your arms seem weak. What's wrong, kid? Are you feverish? Or do you just need to take a shit? Rose said with a sneer. That was it. The boy snapped. Out of my way, you bitch, he said and pulled a revolver from the back of his pants. Rose was leaping behind the wall of luggage before he could bring the gun to bear on her. He fired 2 shots pointlessly into the door. Rose rolled as she hit the ground, grabbing the heaviest bag with her left hand as she righted herself. What? You can't escape bullets? I'll just shoot you through the luggage, the boy said as he turned to try and follow Rose. Rose ducked her head behind the oversized bag as the boy emptied the rest of the revolver into it. The double-action revolver clicked 4 more times as if the boy could summon more loaded chambers from the ether. Rose stood up, pointing a 1911 pistol at the young coachman. Don't move, she said threateningly. The boy looked at her in disbelief. What? How? Rose smiled. You should know. You carried my castle up the stairs for me, and your quivering arms couldn't shoot me if I was right in front of you. You're done. Worn out. Even if you stood a chance in hell against me, I doubt you could even throw a punch. Now drop the revolver, or I'll put a government-issue .45 between your eyes. The revolver fell on the hardwood floor with a heavy thump. Now, you are going to tell me everything, Rose said without lowering her weapon. The boy grabbed the sides of his head. This isn't how it was supposed to go. No, no, need to find the boy. Find the boy, then I can be like him. Be strong like him, he said as he reached down into his boot. Get back, Rose warned a final time. The young coachman pulled a flash of metal out of his boot and roared in madness as he tried to rush Rose. Rose simply squeezed the trigger. In the other room, the first two muffled gunshots made Dr. Humes jump. What's going on? He said, pulling his hands into fists against his chest. Frank calmly listened. Sounds like Rose is putting the squeeze on the coachman. The next four gunshots sent the doctor into a panic. They're coming for me, he cried out. Frank stayed calm but sharply attentive. Maybe they are, but I can feel Rose out there. She seems fine. But there is something else, like a wind passing through an open window. Something cold and unfeeling, yet with iron resolve. Mishka! Humes exclaimed as his failing eyes desperately searched the darkness. Yes, it seems so. Coming to finish the job, he thinks, Frank said, turning his head towards the encroaching evil coming up the stairs. You can still protect me. Do you still know the old ways? Dr. Humes pleaded with Frank, grabbing his hand momentarily before that hand slipped away. Even to his failing eyes, the doctor could see the dark man's figure turn to mist and scatter. Oh, you've already stepped into the shadows, the doctor said with relieved laughter. I don't know why I was even worried. Now that you're here, you'll save me from pain. The door to the bedroom creaked open slowly, and a hand snaked through the opening, holding a gun. Mishka called out in a sing-song voice, Dr. Humes. Yes, I'm here, Dr. Mishka, Humes said, summoning what little bravery he could muster. Mishka closed the door quietly. Do you know why I'm here? Mishka asked like a taunt. Yes, you've come to kill me. First, tell me where I can find the boy. I'll only tell the dark man, Humes said with his remaining strength. Mishka spit on the floor. Don't threaten me with myths, good doctor. The master told me he died when your precious golden city burned. Humes let out a weak laugh. Oh, you poor fool. From the shadows, the dark man spoke. Yes, he does seem a fool for flesh. Mishka spun around, waving his gun around the room. What? There's no one else here. Look around all you want, fool. You'll not find what you're looking for. Not in this life or the next. The dark man's voice was like poisoned honey, jumping around the room. I have a gun. I'll not fall for some trick. The dark man's voice whispered into Mishka's ear. Is it a trick, or are you just a fool? There you are, Mishka cried as he turned abruptly and fired a shot. The dark man's smiling laughter echoed across the vaulted ceiling. Mishka sneered. Fine then, I'll shoot the good doctor. Mishka fired again, hitting a pillow, making feathers shoot into the air, but the bed was empty. What? He was there a second ago. Too foolish to see what's right in front of your eyes, the dark man spoke from the shadows. Dr. Mishka's anger was boiling over. Stop calling me that! I'm no fool! He picked me! The master picked me! I'll burn this whole world down with him. The dark man didn't relent. But you are a fool, a pathetic, deluded, sick man. You've been cast aside. You weren't even worth turning into one of his pawns. Your master slithered away in the night, afraid of the dawn, but you toil away in filth, fucking and killing and burning those little bodies, hoping to invoke the ancient dusty beasts of the abyss. Mishka heard the dark man's voice with his ears ringing in his mind. No! Get out of my head! Face me, you coward! Coward, the dark man said with a low laugh. I see your soul. I see it's shattered and dull, the spark of joy extinguished. Nothing left but hunger, that gnawing feeling in your swollen gut. You want power, but you can't even control your own body. Dr. Mishka's hands began to shake. It wasn't fear. It was like his body was going numb and cold. What are you doing to me? My hands, he cried in dismay. The gun fell from his hand. The rest of his body grew cold and shaky. Now Mishka began to feel the fear. My legs! How are you doing this? The dark man's voice came from every corner of the room. The power you seek is here, Mishka, in the room with you, curling to strike, feeding on your horror. Your body is limp. You are more powerless now than you've ever been. How does it feel to be like those boys you've tied to the stone table? Your shame doesn't fit your monstrous acts. You should be begging me to kill you now, kill you before I drag you to hell. Oh, if I could only see you, you'd be sorry, Mishka threatened weakly. The dark man's reply hit like the gun hit the floor. But I'm not hiding at all. I'm right here, standing over you. A disembodied set of brown eyes glowed in the murky, dark room. They cast light upon an obscured face surrounded by shadow. Your eyes! I can see your eyes! The eyes stared into him. He could feel his darkest memories bubbling to the surface. The layers of his ego were peeling back to reveal deeds that brought him shame and pleasure. He closed his own eyes, hoping to escape the horrible glare. No, get away! Don't come any closer! No, I can't look! Oh, God, I can feel your breath on my face! Open your eyes, the dark man commanded. No, get away! Mishka stumbled backwards, but hands reached out and grabbed his face. The dark man stood, fully revealed, and grasped Mishka's head with both hands. The dark man roared with rage and disgust, inches from Mishka's face. Open your f***ing eyes, maggot! Open them and see your fate! Mishka pushed away from the dark man and howled, No! Ah! He fell backwards onto the floor. He scrambled back to his feet and swung his fist wildly at where the dark man had been, but only felt air. In a panic, he fled towards the door. The dark man let him run. Down the stairs and into the night ran Dr. Mishka like the devil himself was at his heels. But the dark man stayed behind. Eventually, silence fell. Humes, still in his bed despite what Mishka thought, listened intently. His fleeting bravery had passed. Now he was just a frightened old man in the night again. He called out hesitantly, Dark man? Frank replied, I'm here, old friend. Now I remember why they fear you, he said, with a lump in his throat. Frank stepped back out of the shadows and into the gaslight. They only fear themselves. I just hold up a mirror. Back in the guest room, the coachman whimpered while cradling the side of his head. Rose was fussing over him with some gauze and rubbing alcohol that she produced magically from some suitcase not full of rocks. He was restrained with rope and tied to the bed frame. Stop crying like a damn baby, she said. It's only a flesh wound. You shot me, cried the frightened boy. You're lucky it's only your ear. It's so damn dark in here I couldn't even see my sights. Why do we always end up in such dark places? Why don't shitheads live on warm beaches waiting to be clobbered? She said as the boy pulled away from her. You know why, answered the dark man. Rose replied, unsurprised that Frank had appeared in the room without a sound. Yes, I know, but I don't have to like it. The coachman, however, jumped like a ghost had appeared. Who's that? Can we cut out all the spooky stuff? He's already been shot and tied up. The dark man replied, The poor soul. Rose rolled her eyes. Fine, have it your way. I'll just be over here smoking. Got a light? Very funny. Who are you talking to? He had met Frank earlier, but being tied up to where he couldn't see over his shoulder, combined with the dark man's undisguised demeanor, he was unable to connect the two personas in his terrified mind. I don't understand. Step into the light, the boy said. Oh, I'm already in the light. It shows your shame, the dark man said as he stepped in front of the boy. The child looked up and saw the face of the dark man. It's not my fault, the boy pleaded. He made me do it. I'm innocent. Yes, you are a victim. However, you have grown into something more. Even if this world did have a place for a soul like yours, you would do the wicked things that you were taught, the dark man said, putting his hands on his cane as he stood over the boy. The coachman cried, No, just let me go. I'll never hurt a soul, I swear. The dark man continued, You almost believe that, but you know the truth. You were forged in the darkness, and the Creator knew what he wrought. He wanted an acolyte. Oh, you poor boy. He wanted you to be what he was denied. The child quietly cried, "Please." "It will be all right," the dark man said in a velvetly kind voice. "I can take away the pain. Just look into my eyes. Yes, here they are in the night. Follow them. Follow them home." The boy looked up into the piercing eyes of the dark man. "Father?" he asked with a trembling voice. "It's okay, son," the dark man coaxed. "Just step into the light." The boy's face was wrenched with sorrow. I've done things," he said with a sob. "It's okay. It's okay. Just tell me where the man who hurt you does his secret deeds," the dark man said. The young coachman replied, "It's in the old abandoned convent on the other side of town, under the altar. There's a staircase." "Yes, just picture it in your mind." "I'm cold. Am I dying?" "Step into the light. Step into the light and forget," the dark man said, dropping down onto his good knee and drawing his face closer to the boy. The child's eyes grew dim and out of focus, his gaze fixed on something unseeable in the distance. He whispered something soft in Romanian, and as he did, the air left his lungs. With a final sigh, his heart ceased to beat. "Damn, I feel sorry for him now," Rose said as she put out her cigarette. "His soul was too damaged. I couldn't save his life, but perhaps the cleansing waters of rebirth will help him forget. In death, he will have the chance to heal," Frank said as he closed the boy's eyes with a sweep of his hand. "Did you even try to save his life?" Rose asked. "Looks like you killed him to me, and this isn't the first time you've done something like that." "He was already dead. I just reminded him." Dr. Humes waited in his room quietly. He was almost completely blind now, so he carefully listened. After what seemed an eternity, he heard 2 sets of footsteps approaching the door. He knew he was safe, but he was still afraid. The door opened and he smiled despite himself. "Frank? Oh, who is your friend?" he asked, pretending his eyes could still see. "I'm Rose, Doc. Pleased to finally meet you." He could see her outline as she stepped in front of the gaslight. "Oh my, you are a tall one." Rose laughed and blushed a little. "I get that a lot." "Where did you find her, Frank?" he said, wishing he could see the face that went with the Southern Belle's accent. Frank smiled and looked at Rose. "Right where she didn't belong." "Texas," Rose said. "You didn't belong in Texas?" Humes said, a bit puzzled. "Nope, not one bit," she replied. Humes chuckled. "I like her." "Oh, I thought you might," Frank said, stepping over to Humes' bedside. "So where is this boy everyone is looking for?" Rose asked. Frank didn't wait for Humes to speak. "He's dead, isn't he, Dr. Humes?" Humes sighed. "I'm afraid so." "If you had revealed that fact, Mishka would have killed you," Frank said with understanding. "But I think you should tell us what happened. What happened after you saw the beast in Mishka's soul?" Humes recounted what happened. "Everything faded. It was like I was looking through a thin, black gossamer. I had trouble focusing on things. My mind became encumbered, but I could still see Mishka walking out of the room." Frank shook his head. "A simple curse, but an effective one." "A curse?" the doctor said. "No such thing as magic," Rose said out of reflex. Frank nodded. Indeed, it was a poison. He'd probably been having your valet coachman slip it to you for days. "Bernard? But he's such a kind man. A buffoon, but a kind one. Always worrying about me. I had to forbid him from the house at night. He kept checking me to make sure I wasn't dead. Besides, he could have killed me with his bare hands if he wanted. He didn't need poison." "Doctor, can you describe your coachman to us?" asked Frank. "Can't you just look into my mind?" "It would be easier if you just told us," Frank replied. "Oh, he's a strapping lad. 6 feet tall and wide as an ox with green eyes and... Frank stopped him. Yes, I think that's enough. That's not what he looked like to me, Rose said, glancing at Frank. A simple illusion, Frank said, matter-of-factly. The real coachman is likely dead. Humes was in confusion. An illusion? I don't understand. Rose said there's no such thing as magic. Frank laughed softly. No, not magic. The mind is a deeper mystery than magic. Magic is a name for things we can't understand. But everything in this world has its order. Even the mystery of the stars have names. We just don't always know them. Humes asked, But why would he be poisoning me for days? Frank explained. He was following the orders of a man who felt jealous because of your position. That much I felt. Then, when you started noticing his work, he had to be rid of you. 2 birds, 1 rotten stone. Only when he thought you as good as dead did the coward reveal himself. He underestimated your soul, however. He thought you'd slip away and quietly die. But with your back against the wall, you fought. I'd expect no less, but he thought he'd won the game. You've been fighting ever since. A lesser soul would have died, but here you are. Hume shook his head. But now I'm so tired. Rose interjected. So, you were losing your eyesight. What happened next? Humes continued. I stumbled after the man. He walked out of the hospital and into an automobile. I called a carriage. I told the driver to follow at a distance, but Mishka drove like the devil. Our horse-drawn carriage just couldn't keep up. I bade the driver onwards anyway. He cracked the whip over and over. It felt like an eternity. Then, suddenly, we came to a stop. I flew off my bench into the wall of the coach. The horses were screaming like hell was standing in front of them. I jumped out of the coach immediately. I fumbled forward in the darkness. A pair of small hands reached out and found mine. It was a young boy. He was crying and mumbling. His hair was covered in mud and his body was wet from blood. Thick, foul blood. I could see it in the lamplight of the carriage, even with these damn foggy eyes. I took off my coat and wrapped up the poor child. When I touched his back to lead him to the carriage, he screamed out in pain. I helped him back up and into the carriage. I ordered my man to take me to the hospital. I shoved all the money I had on me into his bewildered hands. A good driver knows that enough money can buy secrets. Frank, you have to know, I was deprived of sleep. My head was full of mud, I say. Frank placed a comforting hand on the good doctor's shoulder. I know you are a man of your word. Tell me more. Lighten your load. Hume's eyes filled with tears. I tried to help, but as we rode towards the hospital, the child stopped shivering and crying. His breathing became slow and shallow. He was so cold, but there was nothing I could do. Eventually, his little body had been through too much. I held the child as he took his last breath, and then his body went limp in my arms. Rose turned her head in disgust. Monster! Humes continued. I didn't know what else to do. I made the driver park by the back doors to the morgue. He held the horses until I could come back out with the gurney. I put the boy on the gurney and wheeled him into the morgue. I returned back outside, but the driver had slipped away in the night. I can't really blame the poor fellow. I turned back to the hospital, but suddenly I felt dizzy. I dropped to my knees for a moment, and I panicked. I was properly blind. I cursed all the gods in heaven and the demons of hell. But you didn't let a little blindness stop you, did you, old friend? Said Frank. Humes retorted. Of course not. I knew where I was. The hospital was like a home to me. I knew it like the back of my hand. I soon found my way to the morgue. The silent little body still sitting on the gurney. So quiet. Everything was so quiet. I picked up the boy. I lifted him to the table. He was bony and emaciated. Couldn't have weighed more than a bird. I raised my hands over his corpse. Like I said, he was wet with blood. I could no longer see it, but I could smell it. Old, rotten, spoiled blood. I first felt his face. I drew back in shock. His eyes, they were gone. Just 2 voids in his head. What monstrosities had befallen this child? I continued his examination. Oh, Frank, please let me forget all this, Dr. Humes pleaded. I'm sorry, old friend, we need to know, Frank said. Rose had heard enough. this." She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Dr. Humes looked in her direction with concern. "Oh dear, I'm sorry. Did I frighten the young lady away?" "Don't worry. Rose is fearless," Frank said with a smile. "She's no doubt going to prepare a little vengeance. Tell me, Doctor, what else had been done to that lost soul?" "Well, I discovered as I felt him, his fingernails and toenails had been pulled out. There were multiple lacerations on his legs and arms as well. But the most astonishing thing was his back. I rolled him over after examining his front. Right away, my hands went to the top of his spine. This is where the boy had cried out when I accidentally put my hand on his back. Sure enough, there was a wound between his shoulder blades, a circular wound. At first, it felt like some kind of branding. The flesh felt seared and raised, but in the center I felt something hard. When I probed it again, it was warm to the touch. I went to a cabinet and fumbling around, I felt for a pair of forceps. I must have been smearing blood and filth on everything I touched, but I didn't care. I had already crossed my last bridge. In the back of my mind, I knew that my quiet life in this remote city was over. I no longer cared. I knew evil had finally found me. After all these years, it had found me. The outsider had been right all those years ago. Every soul that fled that night of terror and fire would be damned to wait in fear until evil found them. Frank shook his head. "You give the outsider too much credit. He's merely a bloated leech who feeds on the suffering of others." "But he found me!" Humes exclaimed. Frank shook his head again. "No. Impossible to believe that the outsider was looking for you in particular. This was but a tragic coincidence. The outsider was most definitely in this town, but any trail he may have left is no doubt colder than the grave. He was not looking for you. You were just collateral damage." "A hollow mercy," Hume said. "Indeed, but continue your story." "I grabbed the object with the forceps and pulled it out of his back. I felt it in my hands. It was warm, as I said, too warm to be from the body of that child. It felt like a thick shard of glass. But as I felt it, I started to think it was polished, jagged stone. Then I realized it was both, volcanic glass. As I held it, it grew hotter and hotter. I dropped it on the table and took a step back. There's only one thing I know that is like volcanic glass, but can still produce its own heat." "You don't mean?" Frank asked with caution. Hume's blind eyes grew wide. "Yes, it had to be golden glass. Golden glass from under the golden city, from deep in the mines of madness. Radioactive is the word you would always say." Frank agreed. "Yes, a dangerous shard from a dangerous past. What became of it?" "Well, it had to be destroyed. I placed the glass in a metal container and found a bone hammer. I smashed it to bits. Then I took the boy and the glass to the body incinerator. I slid the boy inside and tossed the cursed pebbles in as well." "A shame," Frank mused. "I might have been able to use that. The heat of the crematorium would have shattered its remains beyond recovery. Whatever golden glass may remain in this world would be damaged from the night of the fall anyway, its potency most likely reduced from the offset." Hume shook his head. "It no longer matters. I found my way to a locker room in the basement level. I took a shower and stole some clothes. I rang home for Bernard to pick me up. On the way home, I stopped by the telegraph office and sent you a cable. After I got home, that bastard coachman helped me into the bed and brought me a hot cup of tea. Each night I was tormented with the visages of horror, but every morning I would feel awake enough to ask the coachman to check the telegraph office, and every night I'd be tortured until dawn." "I'm sorry, old friend. You drank more poison every evening, no doubt. If only I could have gotten here sooner." Humes reached up and touched Frank's face. "My dear boy, it's not your fault. It never has been." Frank looked away. "You should rest now, good doctor. I'll see to the rest. This monster doesn't deserve the mercy of the grave." Frank started to turn to leave the room, but Dr. Hume stopped him. "Please, Frank, can you do me one last favor?" Frank looked back with weary eyes. "Don't ask this of me. You might still pass through this tunnel. It doesn't have to end here." "I've seen too much. I know too much. My time is done. I've been alone in this room fighting night after night for what feels like an eternity. Fighting while holding out hope that you'd come, that I could finally say thank you for everything you've done. Hoping or up against hope that you'd punish this monster for me. Hoping that you'd do what I was too weak to do. There was a slight tremble in the dark man's voice. Dear doctor. Humes asked again, please, I beg you, take away my pain. The dark man sighed and took a moment to collect himself. When he spoke again, it was like when he spoke to the frightened boy in the other room. His words hypnotically soothing. He reached out and held his old friend's pain and pulled it into his own mind. You're already feeling lighter, doctor. Can't you tell? Humes offered no resistance to the dark man's will. It was like his thoughts were dandelion seeds and the dark man was the wind. Oh, is it sunrise? Dr. Humes asked. I can feel it on my cheek. Yes, doctor. The warm sun brushes against your cheek. And with your windows open, you can smell the breeze. Humes smiled. I know the smell. Oh, I can almost see it. Please let me see it one more time, Frank. Old friend, you only need to open your eyes. You're standing at the mouth of the mountain pass. The warm air surrounds you. You look to the valley below. Humes was weeping tears of joy. With a trembling voice he said, I see it. Oh, such a wonder. I feel light. Frank gently stroked the doctor's thin gray hair. Your soul is unburdened. The weight on your chest is removed. No more horror, only warmth and light. You are young again, and your mind fills with all the possibilities of the young. Clara takes your hand, and you feel her tiny fingers in yours. Humes was smiling. I'm finally home again, little Clara. I'm finally home. With that final vision, Dr. Humes, survival of the fall of the great golden city, veteran of the trail of 1,000 nightmares, and healer of all who ever asked it of him, exhaled his last breath. Frank took his friend's hand and placed it on his chest. Goodbye, old friend. May we meet again someday, in the place where shadows fear to tread. In the guest room, Rose was performing her own kind of ritual. She double-checked each of her magazines to make sure they were full. She strapped an extra magazine holster to her leg like a garter of death. She ran the bolt back and forth several times on her submachine gun to make sure it moved free and smooth. Frank stepped into the room. I see you have the Thompson, he said. I never pack light, she said as she slid a drum magazine into the submachine gun. Yes, I imagine we'll have to go in heavy. There will be no doubt a tomb of terrors waiting for us. So, did you kill the doctor too? She asked without looking up. Frank shook his head. I simply led him home. 2 bodies, 1 night. You're on a roll, she said. I simply do what I must, Frank replied. Rose looked up. And when will it be my turn? Will you someday whisk me away as well? I hope not. It's not something I've ever enjoyed. He avoided her accusation. Death follows you. I was warned, and it has proven true, she said. Time and tide come for all of us, Frank said like a prayer. Rose stood up, holding the Thompson in her hands. But not for you. You hobble around the world with your little cane in that frail body. No one sees a monster, just a weak-bodied old man. It's true I'm far from young. Yeah, I know, she said, relaxing her shoulders and letting the gun hang a little more loosely in her grip. Please don't be mad at me. You know how I wish I could pass on this burden, Frank said, looking at her with sad eyes. Do you really? Because you seem to enjoy this work. I can't help what I am. The evil of man fills me with rage, he said, with a harsher tone to his voice. On nights like this, I'm tempted to fill you full of lead, she said as she narrowed her eyes. If only it were that easy, Frank sighed. Fuck it. I assume you already have a fucked up plan of that fucked up head of yours, she said. We'll wait a few hours. I need to gather my strength. I'll be dealing with a strong will. You won't leave until tomorrow. Now that I know where to look, I can feel his thoughts. He's calming himself, steeling his intentions, preparing to collect his secrets and go. But he won't risk walking out into the dawn. He thinks he can best me, and that will be his undoing. Frank, Rose asked. Yes, replied Frank. Let me do this one. Let me fill him with holes until he passes for hamburger. She squeezed the walnut stock of her weapon like it was the neck of the murdering Mishka. Frank let out a half-hearted chuckle. You know why I can't let you? I know, but it would make me feel better, she said. And you say I enjoy the work too much? At least make him scream, Rose said in disgust. I'll do my best to... Frank grunted as he leaned on his cane harder. Frank, Rose cried out as she forgot her animosity. I'm all right, just tired. My old injury doesn't like this cold, wet night, Frank said, righting himself. Go lay down already. I know you haven't been sleeping right lately. I'll wake you in 2 hours, she said, ushering him towards the bed. There's one more thing, Frank said in discomfort. And what's that, she asked. Frank replied, prepare yourself. You will have a small army. Don't let your eyes be fooled. Rose stood up straight and solemnly said, I am the stone rose. I stand at the gates. I do not step aside. Nothing fools my eyes. Thank you, Rose, said the dark man with some effort as he lay back on the bed. Thank you. Dr. Mishka ran around the limestone-walled basement lit by candlelight. His voice echoed off the mossy stones as he barked orders to small, shadowy figures that flitted in the candlelight. Quick, you fools, he shouted abusively. Throw all the papers into the chest. No, not that. That's rubbish. Can't you do even the simplest of things? Somewhere outside he heard a car backfire. No, I'm not ready. But they're here. He looked at his minions and smiled. No, this is actually good. Never mind how they found me. They'll be ripped limb from limb. Go now, all of you. Bring me their hearts. The shadowy figures scrambled up the dark stairs to the chamber above. Rose cursed at the car that they had borrowed from a bewildered and hypnotized taxi driver they had summoned with Dr. Hume's telephone. God damn, what a jalopy. There goes the element of surprise. If I'd known we'd been fighting in the chapel, not the cellar, I'd brought the BAR. Frank stood calmly with his hands resting on his cane. It doesn't matter. A fool's end will always find its fool. Rose strode up to the dark, tall, weathered chapel doors and with one hand grabbed the iron handle. With one violent motion, she pulled the door so hard that the wooden boards creaked. A board that was barring the door splintered and snapped like a twig. She threw the door open and squinted into the darkness beyond. For a moment, they took in the scene obscured by night. Rose was ready for anything as she grumbled. Too damn dark. Too damn quiet. Not for long. I can feel their simple minds coming closer, Frank said as his voice echoed in the chapel. I hear it. The sound of grinding stones. In the gentle moonlight spilling through the fragmented windows, a stone altar slid open. Rose said, I'll throw a flare. She slung her Thompson over her shoulder and pulled a road flare from her belt. She pulled off the cap and struck the top with it. Crimson fire sputtered to life. She tossed the flare out towards the center of the crumbling chapel. Dark figures shuffled forward in the darkness. What are those things? Rose asked in confusion. A small army of victims, Frank said with a familiar edge to his voice. Souls trapped in small, rotting vessels, intent on defending their master. It will be your duty to free them. There's a lot more than I expected, Rose said, her face twisted by anger. Fucking undead? You were right. This prick deserves worse than death. I hope you didn't underpack, Frank said. A lady always overpacks, Rose said, bringing the barrel of the submachine gun to bear on the shadows. I can see them now. There. Oh my God, they're children. Rotting, suffering children. And so many, she said in disbelief. Yes, a small army of small souls, each one trapped in amber. Not for long, Rose shouted. They are not meant to be. Their life is an illusion. Aim between their collarbones. You must shatter the glass in their spines to set them free. And do not hesitate. Each tiny hand is as strong as death itself. You don't have to tell me twice, Rose said, as the Thompson roared to life, spitting bullets in short, controlled bursts. They ripped through flesh and stone, revealing flashes of tortured, angelic faces. Frank called out as he rushed forwards. I'll go on ahead. Don't worry about me, Rose replied. I wasn't planning on it. Back in the cellar, surrounded by roots and smeared with fleshy remains of death, Mishka fumbled through his belongings. Where is it? Where did I put it? He babbled to himself. There it is, my sword. Now the book. I need the book. Over the gunfire, a sharp sound echoed. The tap, tap of the dark man's cane. For some reason, it was louder to his ears than the gunfire. What's that? Mishka said, turning to face the stairway. The tap, tap of a cane on stone grew sharper and closer. I know it's you, man of darkness, he roared. Will you finally step into the light? Frank descended the stone staircase with his odd gait, the tip of his cane sharply ringing out on every step. Come into the light, he said with his eyes burning. I am the light. Mishka laughed. So that's why you hide in the darkness. You're nothing but a cripple, a lame man with a spooky voice. The dark man replied. Then why do you grasp that sword so tightly? Mishka pulled his blade from its sheath and smiled. Oh, I've read the stories. The blade that felled your master was like this. Steel with a heart of hematite. I believe it's called a soul blade. The master helped me forge it. I can cut into your very soul. Then strike true, fool. Be quick about it, or the soul that gets cleaved will be your own. The dark man said as he calmly stood at the bottom of the stairs with both hands on his cane. Mishka cried out in rage as he rushed the dark man. He raised up his blade and brought it down towards Frank's head. It sliced through the air, but instead of finding its target, the overeager blade struck the stone floor. In a moment that confused Mishka, the dark man's image flew apart. Thousands of tiny wings buzzed all around him. Mishka swung his sword blindly at the insects as they descended upon him. How in the names of Lucifer? Flies! Filthy flies! The sword sparked off the stone as Mishka fought fruitlessly. The dark man spoke with a hidden rage. Do you hear? The gunfire has stopped. The gunfire had stopped, but the thrumming mass of flies did not relent. Mishka screamed with a shrill panic. Get them off of me! They're in my hides! They're in my ears! They're buzzing! Mishka retreated further into the cellar, dropping his sword with a clatter like thunder. The dark man slowly advanced, his cane sending echoes dancing in the candlelight, even though he was not to be seen. Why so cold to those so warm to embrace you? Came the quiet rage of the dark man's voice. You're the devil! Get them off of me! Mishka fell to his knees, clawing at his face desperately. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the flies had gone. Mishka looked up at the sneering face of the dark man helplessly. And now, here I am, said the dark man, standing before you, flesh and blood. You're right not to fear the pale vessel that walks among men. It is but a trick of the light. But my sword is not. Quicker than Mishka's eyes could follow, the dark man pulled a sword from his cane and plunged it into Mishka's right shoulder. Mishka cried out in pain. Ah! It burns! A sword? The dark man returned the blade just as quickly to its sheath in his cane as he said, This is just a taste. This is what a true soul blade does. It burns the soul where it pierces. And unlike your trinket, mine was forged in the depths between life and death. Mishka called out in despair, Oh, master, where are you? Why did you leave? The dark man answered, He left because you're a worm, a filthy thing that writhes in the dirt, not even worth killing. But I can feel it here. He got sloppy and left some things behind. You can't help but look. So it's there. They both looked upon an alcove with a small wooden door. The dark man turned his back on the broken fool. Yes, please just take it and go, cried the fool. Oh, I'll leave soon enough, said the dark man, the tip of his cane calling out from the stones again. Mishka sobbed and fell over onto his side while grasping his wound. The dark man opened the small door and peered inside. Mishka got up to his hands and knees and looked at his hand, covered in blood. Anger began to bubble back up inside of him, dulling the pain. The dark man reached inside the little alcove and picked up a small yellow shard of glass. Frank sighed. Just a tiny speck of glass remains. Insignificant. You've wasted it all. Just like you're wasting your time reaching for that sword again. Mishka leaped to his feet, holding the sword in his left hand. Die! He screamed. Again he swung, and again the dark man exploded into a swarm of flies. They swirled around Mishka like a cloud of pestilence, taking hundreds of tiny bites out of his exposed skin. Mishka howled in madness. Yes, you finally understand. It is madness what you've done, what you've wrought. Stealing innocence, then stealing life. Trapping souls in rotting bodies so that you can violate them again and again. Mishka's voice went from howling to crying. Leave me alone, he pleaded as he writhed around on the floor. The dark man stood over him, a monolithic figure in the guise of a simple man. These insects you think are so foul are merely companions of life. They are with us from cradle to grave, and you don't deserve their mercy, or that of the grave. Mishka was begging, No, please kill me. The dark man exhaled slowly, and the flies began to slowly disperse. Their buzzing faded away with each tear that ran down Mishka's face. Frank spoke, his fury temporarily quenched. Calm yourself. Now, take my hand. Oh, sweet Jesus, thank you, master. Thank you, Mishka took the dark man's hand. Oh, I'm no master to men, he said with a quiet warning. The world around them began to smear and run like wet paint. The candlelight flickered and faded. A thick black fog rolled down the disappearing stairs and swirled around them. The sounds ceased to echo. Mishka looked around in confusion. Where am I? Give your eyes time to adjust, the dark man replied. Mishka looked up at his face. I can see you, but you look like your eyes are glowing. They're lighting your face. The fog is pulling away from you. I told you before, I am the light, especially in this place. Mishka asked, but where are we? Mishka let go of the dark man's hand and stumbled to his feet in wonder. He waved his bloody hand in disbelief through the fog. Out in the darkness there was a deep, low, thrumming sound. What is that? Mishka whispered. Denizens of this realm, the dark man replied. What realm? Mishka whispered again, hoping that whatever had made that noise he felt through his chest would not hear him. This is the gray realm, the dark man spoke without fear, the place where every dark deed creates a dark beast, where madness would be a cruel breeze compared to what these things will do to you. Mishka pulled away from the dark man's side. No, impossible! This is just another one of your illusions. The dark man smiled subtly. No, not an illusion, and not alive. At least not in the way you understand. In time you'll become just like them, twisted and bestial, knowing nothing but pain and hunger. The savage endlessly feeds on the savage. Your form will be forgotten. The very sun will be forgotten. Your life will become a nightmare you've never dreamed but can't forget. This is your tomb. This is your prison. Never to die and never to let your twisted soul be born again. Born again to kill again. Never reincarnated another perversion of flesh. Never will you see the light of day. Mishka spun around as another deep thrumming vocalization vibrated the ground beneath him. No, please, I want to go back. He turned to the dark man, but the dark man was gone. Wait, where did you go? Don't leave me here, he shouted shrilly. Dark man, can you hear me? In front of his disbelieving eyes, something was pushing aside the fog with a faint bioluminescence, some light diffused by thick flesh. Dr. Mishka turned to run, but a massive eye looked upon him as the wall of flesh rose up behind him. No one heard his screams. No one that was human, anyway. A distant bell in a distant tower called out with one reverberating ring, marking the late hour. The lapping waters of the pier gently rocked all the boats like sleeping children in the night. Frank stared out at the misty waters, lost in thought. He stood on the deck of the Umbra, holding the small book in his hand, leaning heavily on his cane. Rose came up on deck behind him. He suddenly looked surprisingly frail to her. She had seen him effortlessly fight dozens of individuals. Part of her looked upon all the darkness that surrounded the man named Frank Lumas and wondered if the world would be better without him. Another part knew that he was her loyal friend, and some nights were not so easy for him. Some nights he struggled. Some nights he seemed weak for no explicable reason. She looked at the thin volume in his hand. It was bound simply in black with no words on its hardcover. "Here, let me get that," she said, pulling the book from his soft grip. She turned it over and examined it. It held no clue to its contents. "So what is this book? Is that how he made those things?" she asked. Frank took a moment before answering. "Maybe. I've seen golden glass used for many things, but tonight I saw something new." Rose put her hand on his shoulder. "Come below deck. You've done enough for tonight." Frank said nothing, but quietly let her lead him down below deck. They passed the galley and the boiler room. She even opened the door of his room for him as he shuffled wordlessly. Rose remembered a night where they had arrived at a small town too late to save anyone. As they stood over an open mass grave, he had said that the dark gift always extracted a dark toll. She had always wondered what he had meant on that night where words had failed them both. Tonight she thought she understood those words a little bit better. They stood in the open door to his cabin. "Frank," she said to get his attention, "go sit in your chair. I'll bring you a bourbon." "Thank you, Rose," he said. "I really don't know how I ever managed without you," he said as he shuffled past the door. As he did, she tried to open the book. It didn't budge. She gripped it tighter and pulled its cover with her considerable strength, but it felt like it was made of a solid piece of oak. "I doubt it will open. It doesn't matter. I do believe it'll require the blood of something esoteric to open. Those type of books usually do. Who knows what he set the blood key to?" Frank said as he slowly lowered himself into his reading chair and looked up at her. "Do you think this little book caused all that fuss?" Frank replied with tired eyes. "Not really. I doubt he could have even read it if he'd opened it. It was probably left behind as some obscene gesture from my old friend the outsider. You're still not going to tell me who that is, are you?" she said as she entered the room and pulled a bottle of bourbon off the high shelf. Frank shook his head. "Not tonight, Rose. My head is so full of filth I just want to get drunk and brood a bit." "So what do we do with it? Burn it?" she asked as she poured a glass and handed it to Frank. "I'm categorically against burning any book, even dangerous ones. Besides, it can't be destroyed. Even the fires of hell couldn't claim it. Just like many of the books in the library of the Golden City, that book is permanent knowledge," Frank said. "You mean it's indestructible?" Frank nodded. "Why haven't I seen indestructible books before this one?" "They are buried deep under the mountains of the Golden City, lost in its fall, I'm afraid." "So I guess we bury it somewhere?" "We will sink it to the bottom of the sea, so deep and far off the shipping lanes that they would have to drain the oceans to find it. Even in the 21st century, only a small fraction of the ocean has been explored. Even though this is the only lead I've found in years to the outsider's whereabouts, I think that it should be forgotten." Rose turned the tome around in her hands. "So, how do you make an indestructible book?" "Normally, a group of monks make it from calfskin and meditate on its binding for 3 years. They imprint a piece of their soul. But this book is different," Frank said ominously. "How so?" Frank looked at the book, a spark of anger in the corner of his eyes. "It's made in the profane way, sacrificing nothing from the binder, but drawing from the binding potential soul energy. It's bound in the skin of aborted children, girls to be exact, as their potential life energy is higher because they would have children of their own someday, at least potentially. In its ink, the blood of maidens, pulling at the other extreme of potential soul energy." "Ew, shit," Rose said, wrinkling her nose in disgust. "Yes, I suspect that is why the outsider needed a corruptible doctor. Back alley abortions are always needed in these backward times. Are you all right? You seem kind of pale." "Gross," Rose said. "I agree completely. No doubt the outsider left it behind just to show off what he could do. Now I need a drink. Here, you can have this book back, she said as she threw it at his bunk. Oh, Rose. Yes, Frank? Amidst all the commotion, I forgot to ask. Why did you pack 3 bags of rocks? Oh, the rocks, she said, leaning against the door frame. Yes, the rocks. I know you're a member of the Stone Order, but a bag full of rocks is awfully literal. Rose laughed. Ha! That's not it. Then why? Do please divulge the mystery before my alcohol takes my wits. Rose smiled. Remember that business in Italy? You mean the Forgotten Bones? Frank asked. No, the gunfight in the alley that had nothing to do with us, she replied. Frank nodded slightly. Yes, the business that woke us up in the middle of the night? Were you going to drop those on someone from a balcony the way you dropped the table from your room on that Sicilian? Rose let out an amused snort. No, it's just that bullets went through my bed from the floor below. Missed me entirely, but destroyed that painting in my suitcase that you said would be worth a mint in a few decades. So, were you shielding something? Yeah, myself, dummy, she teased. I've started to think about ways to have portable bullet barriers hidden in our luggage. Seeing how I'm always the one who gets almost shot. Frank raised an eyebrow. Did it work? Almost, she said, then paused. Not really. Rocks got blasted to bits. So did the suitcases. Not my best idea. Should have sprung for some steel, but we left in such a hurry after you got Dr. Hume's cable that all I had to work with were the pile of rubble rocks by the wharf. Well, why don't we use them to weigh down the book, Frank suggested. Rose shrugged. Oh, that would work. Oh, except I left them all at Dr. Hume's house. Oh, dear. Did we leave all the luggage behind? He asked. Of course not. Had to pack the guns in something. Frank finally cracked a smile. Yes, of course. But what happened to my clothes? Rose smiled back. No clue. Anyway, I'm going above deck. Good night. Frank shook his head. Good night, Rose. Frank listened as Rose's heavy footsteps faded away. From a tiny sliver of a shadow, Frank could hear something breathing, something wanting to enter the world, something hungry, something old. A whispering hiss of a voice said, You left in a hurry. You know why, Frank said, narrowing his eyes. You can't bribe me forever, the weak voice said. One night it will be your turn. The dark man smiled. Not tonight, demon. Not tonight. The diesel engine of the Umbra growled to life. It thrummed through the floorboards. Frank took a slow pull of his bourbon, letting it warm his belly. Good night, dream thief, he chuckled. The dream thief did not reply. To be continued.
Now, I have never claimed to be an actor, let alone a good one. So, I did my best on that. I tried to do some voices, make it a little more interesting. And I think I'm getting it out right in time for Halloween. Isn't that right, Shrek? Isn't that right, Shrek? Yes.